Welcome back to Dreamy Thatch Grove. I'm so glad you found your way here. I am Bryn, and it is lovely as always to have you. Today I'm just going to be sort of rambling a bit more than usual. I have a new tarot deck that I got. Seasons of the Witch Imbolc Oracle deck. It's actually currently Yule season, but to me it's very close to Imbolc anyway, at least aesthetically, if nothing else. So I think it still feels right to do any time around winter for me. And for that matter, these don't need to be in season. They can kind of have their vibe, their energy brought into any seasons. But I used to not really use oracle decks at all. A couple years ago, I was given the Seasons of the Witch Letha deck as a gift and just sort of set it aside and forgot that I had never opened it until a few months ago when I wanted to film for ASMR for this channel, and it was around Letha anyway. So then I went back to it and I really liked it. Then I ended up buying myself the Samhain deck, and then was recently given this Imbolc deck, which I love the visuals of it so far. I think at least aesthetically it's my favorite one of them. But it's still very new to me, and I always like to do a tarot session with new decks to sort of orient myself with them and get to know them really. I didn't think I was going to want to film that at all, but for some reason I felt called to maybe see if anyone else is interested or intrigued by that at all and wants some kind of ideas for their own practice or just watching how other people go about it. I have specifically 4 cards that I look for with new decks. I have here a little notebook where I keep track of some of my tarot thoughts at the very beginning here. Yeah, at the very beginning here I've got little a quick guide for the main cards in a Rider-Waite deck. Just like 1 word or 1 sentence descriptions for each card as I understand them and I know them, which is sometimes slightly different than classic understandings. It's all meant to be very personal and interpretive. I have some of my personal spreads that I go back to. And then at the way back here I have sort of an index where I keep track of my deck connectivity readings. And I have 4 sort of archetypes that I'm looking for in each deck to understand my connection to them better. I should really preface this, since I'm being more conversational and rambly, I should really preface this by saying that this is, when I make tarot videos, which I've only done a few so far, but when I make tarot videos, I really like to lean into the implicit belief, which is often drawing on sort of traditional occult practices and understandings. I'm actually slightly less woo-woo than that most of the time. The reason that I sort of lean into it for the purposes of videos like these is that I think there's something to be said for suspending disbelief during the ritual, right? So like you only need to believe it for as long as the ritual lasts. And I'm not quite to the extent of not believing it entirely. It's just more a matter of the verbiage I'm choosing to use. So for example, I made a video for Samhain. And in there I'm using terms like spirit guides and the spirit world and things like that. I don't necessarily mean that even in the most literal sense. It's more just, to me, tarot is a Rorschach test. It's a very effective one because it has so many different meanings and interpretations and connotations baked in to every card, even in oracle decks, that they make for very effective Rorschach tests wherein it's not about the ink on the page, it's about what you jump to and then trying to reverse engineer and like reverse understand why. I skip over the second part of trying to examine why that's what's being interpreted by myself as the reader of the cards or as you listening to the reading. I skip over that for the sake of immersion. But I do recommend that as something to do in real life. So as I get into this, I'm going to be using like more and more woo-woo terminology. You don't need to buy into that. I only somewhat buy into that myself. It depends. So it's just relying on that terminology as a frame from which to sort of give yourself something to react to. Later on, after a reading, I will, like after I've kind of absorbed that, I will go back and I will think about why that was my interpretation of it. Because you could take things however. And so the fact that however you end up taking it, the fact that that's how you took it says something about you, and that's really worth examining, whether you buy into the mysticism of it all or not. So, I feel like I'm not explaining that very well, but I just wanted to say something about that while I'm kind of going over my own personal practices. I'm aware it sounds very weird to sit here with like an entire tarot journal and be like, I'm not a woo-woo girly, but like, it's a practice to examine the self, and it's also, there's something deeply comforting in it, and so it allows you to first hit that comfort in interpreting it however you want, and then later, once you're ready, once your nervous system's more regulated, you can go back and question yourself about it more. So I'm not gonna be saying all of that in every tarot video that I make, every reading, but that's how I personally choose to interact with the tarot in my real life. So if I'm about to start talking about like spirit and energy, I mean like very overlapping things when I say that, and it's not even always completely literal. It's just a matter of using established themes and concepts. Concept is a good word. It's conceptualization of ideas that can be delivered very fast because they are like widely held, at least within occult communities. So I'm not explaining that very well, but let me just get to it. So, letting myself sort of buy into the woo-woo of it all, I will go over some of my things here. So I have 4 cards that I look for. And again, for the purposes of this, I'm letting myself believe all of the magic of it. I don't care. You can feel silly if you want. Let yourself feel I look silly. I'm letting myself buy into that for this. And so I'm going to talk about letting the deck speak to me in here. And that can sound very, very silly. And it a little bit is. But just letting yourself believe it for the length of the ritual can be very helpful, I think. So we're going to talk about letting the deck speak to you. The 4 cards I pull are Conduit, Mother, Mirror, and Root. These are not, if any of these are established terms for tarot readers, I'm not familiar with that. I really just know what I like to do and like my own terminology that I've built up for myself and my practice and what works for me. So, conduit, what I mean by a conduit card is the relationship between the deck and the self. The self here meaning me, meaning you, meaning whoever's reading it. It's the relationship between the deck and the self. I wrote here, tell me who you are. The conduit card can work. I used to pull like an introduction card, letting the deck introduce itself to me. I've stopped really doing that. Instead, with conduit, it's sort of it's almost asking like, what do you have to say? It has a lot of crossover with the root. You'll see that when I get there. It's hard for me to explain what I mean by these. And that's why I was not planning on making necessarily a video about it. But I like watching other people talk about their practices. So I thought it could be helpful. But the conduit card is letting the deck explain to you who it is in relation to you. The Mother card, this is a weird one. This is in reference to a character that you haven't even seen yet because I haven't released, at least at the time of upload, I haven't released any of that yet. It is a character that I made for this channel. I haven't released any of it yet, but I'm making like little like stories and like world building, just like stories for this channel. And in there, the like main spiritual figure is Mother Deciduous. This could be, to you it could be like God, or it could be the concept of spirit, or like your spirit guides. What I wrote here is that it is spirit, or it is the speaker. It also kind of represents nature in a way, and ultimately it is the link to life force and to the mind, in particular the mind. Sort of the reflection between your own mind being a reflection of the universe at large, right? That is what the Mother card means. So it's like the deck has to say about a connection to that character to you, whoever that is. Whether you believe it's real or not, to me it's just a character I made up for myself to articulate these ideas. Again, this is going to be the worst part of me. Me explaining what these cards are is the worst part of this video, I'm sure. Because you develop a shorthand with yourself when you build up a practice. And it's really hard to articulate it properly to other people sometimes. The mirror, however, is pretty straightforward. The mirror is the self. But specifically, the self as seen by the deck. Right? So, it is how the deck sees you, sees me, rather than asking it to be accurate. I'm just trying to understand its perspective of me. And then finally, the root, the ultimate root. I will often pull a root card for any to all readings I do. So, in doing it with the connectivity reading, this is like the ultimate root. And what I mean by that is, what is going to be like a common theme that I should keep in mind with all future readings with this deck? What is like the main takeaway you have to offer me? I think that's what I wrote, yeah. What it has to offer me. There's a piece of that in the conduit card as well, and I'm not sure how to explain the difference between those two properly. But the root is more about what it has to say to me, whereas the conduit is more about its connection to me. And I know what I mean by that. So I hope that makes sense to you. I have each of these written down for a few decks that I have. I went back and forth on whether I wanted to show this or not, because it's very personal for me. But I guess I'm just in the mood for a sense of connection right now, because I think I'm in the mood to share it. So here I have a mushroom deck. It's actually called the Midnight Magic deck. It is one of my favorite decks I've ever had. It has mushrooms representing each card. It's not an oracle deck. It is like the standard Rider-Waite deck. Like it has the standard, major and minor arcana. But each card is represented by a different mushroom. And I really like this deck. And then I also have here a classic deck, which is just, I have like the standard Rider-Waite that just has the usual standard art on it. So, since these are the two non-oracle decks, I'll go over them here. For the mushroom deck, the conduit card I pulled was the Ace of Pentacles, which, and in all of the descriptions I give for these cards, remember that it's not always in line with standard interpretations of them. They are how I interpret them, and like I've built up my own connotations to these cards over the years. But for me, Ace of Pentacles, and I think this is true generally, is like windfall. It's very, right, it's like the seed money, it's a good news card. So it's a very positive card, and it's very money-based. It's windfall. The mother card for it was the Six of Cups, which is like inner child, and like childlike wonder, and most especially childlike joy. It's a favorite card of mine. I loved pulling this for the Mother Deciduous card. The mirror card was the High Priestess. I have pulled High Priestess for the mirror card for all but I think 2 decks ever, except for Oracle decks, which don't have them, but for like the standard 78 card decks, I have pulled High Priestess as a mirror card almost every single time. And the root card was the Knight of Wands, which is very much like action-based. This one surprised me a little bit. So, what would these all feel like together are very positive, first of all. But it's very... Ace of Pentacles feels like, as the Conduit card feels like, there's a symbiosis there. It's like there's an I'm rooting for you in that. Mother Deciduous coming through as the 6 of Cups. It feels like there's a lot of inner child healing to be found in readings here. The High Priestess, which by the way means like intuition. I don't think I said that. That is the self. It tells me it sees me as a seer, in a way. And the root being Knight of Wands. That's like the deck saying, hey, I'm gonna keep telling you to go for it. I'm gonna tell you to move. I'm gonna tell you to like get the thing done. It's very like actionable, actionable activity in that. My classic deck, the Conduit card was the Queen of Pentacles, which I have, I think in my little like quick draw, how do I put this? My little quick notes, kind of the spark notes of my interpretations for the cards. I have the Queen of Pentacles written down as, you are building a foundation. And the shadow for that I have is caretaking. So that's slightly different from maybe standard interpretations of the Queen of Pentacles. But there's something about like vibe curation on purpose with the Queen of Pentacles as I understand it. As a Conduit card, I like that a lot. That feels, I always really resonate with the Queen of Pentacles. It's about like building community and building environment and building that foundation, and you have to do it on purpose, right? Because all messages not delivered on purpose will be delivered on accident. And so you have to be really purposeful in the way that you create a community, in the way that you craft the life around you, particularly as it pertains to the other people in your life. The Mother card was the Magician, which is like manifestation. It's deciding what you want and then having the audacity to enact it. The Mirror was, again, High Priestess. That's an intuition. And the root, I pulled the Star. This reading for me got very emotional at the time. I was in a weird state of mind when I did this. And pulling the Star then made me like so... I just really felt this one. I'm not even sure how to explain why. The Star, for me, there's something about like trusting the self in it. Let me see how I have it written down. I can never remember the exact ways I like to word things. That's why I have these little like single line notes about each card, because I do get them confused. But the Star, the Star I have written down, your mind is a renewable resource. And when I got that in this reading, at the time that I got it, it did make me very emotional. And so I feel very like sentimentally towards this. But root card there that feels like this deck always, like I said, it's a trust yourself. And so I can use this reading to apply to every future reading with this deck, with the understanding that the ultimate root to it is always about trusting yourself and trusting your mind, not hoarding your ideas. And that's a really good color to have on other readings. Then the Aletha deck. I don't have the descriptions for these in front of me, and I haven't used either of these quite enough to have them memorized, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But just if you're curious, my conduit card was Money Magic. The mother card was Herb Crafting. Mirror was Green Witch, and root was Stargazing, which was very exciting for me after feeling so emotionally about the star down here. And I loved it. I don't remember it right off, but I loved the description they gave for the Stargazing card. The Samhain deck was the weirdest connectivity reading I've ever done. My mind was really scattered at the time, and I felt very unsure, which is never helpful when doing a reading like this, because I kept feeling like I wasn't sure when to stop shuffling and when to decide that that was the card for each of these. And so I went back and kept trying to redo it, which should defeat the purpose, except that no matter how long I shuffled, I kept getting the same exact cards over and over. It was the weirdest experience I've ever had doing one of these. Even still, I did get 2 for each of them except for the root. The conduit, I got Pumpkin and Nature Spirits. For Mother, I got Elements and Elders. Self was Divination and Owl, and the root could only have been Wolf. Wolf came up as the root card probably 8 to 10 times. This took a while. This one took a while. I was crazy when I did this. I'm glad I did not film that one because I did not come across very well, I think. But in particular, Divination, Owl, Wolf, and Pumpkin kept coming up no matter what. That was a very weird one for me. But I'm feeling much more centered now, and I am ready. I'm ready to get into this and get my pen cap off. Mirror and root. All right, I'm going to set that aside for now. Here the booklet for it, so we'll set that to the side as well. I'll set you up there. And we will get out the cards and start shuffling. I've already shuffled it, and I've done a couple of readings with it, which is inadvisable. I should really do the connectivity readings first. But have never promised to come across as perfect here. I have been really leaning into sort of focused, almost visualization as I shuffle lately. And I've been thinking about that character of the mother deciduous. And to you, that might be spirit. To you, that might be God. To you, that might be the highest self. It can be anything, but to me, I refer to it as the character I made called Mother Deciduous. And even though, again, fictional character I made up, there you have it. But I've lately been trying to tap into that energy and nearly saying out loud what I'm asking the deck for. And so I will be like, oh, I didn't even get to say. I was going to say Mother Deciduous. Bring me the conduit card for this deck. Tell me who you are. I set aside this one because as I was shuffling, it called to me. This happens a lot where I have multiples that feel like they're being called for what should be one card. So this might take a while because it does sometimes require looking at them, reshuffling, and just sort of following my gut sometimes. Mostly just with Oracle decks, with the standard 78 card ones, because I'm more familiar with them, I'll just pull one for each. For these ones, I let them fall out naturally, and sometimes we'll like reshuffle and redo. And it's really just following intuition and sort of doing whatever you want. But this one just fell out. I will often interpret the ones that fall out as being either conduit or root cards, but sometimes I will reshuffle it in and see if it comes back up multiple times. This one is number 32, North Star. I am an embodiment of what I seek, walking with purpose while focused on my path. And I will also look at the one that was calling to me. Winter woodlands. Take time to honor what you feel. Self-compassion is the healing balm you desire. And then the top one from finishing shuffling. Ooh, weather divination. I trust in what I feel, for what I feel are signs to pay mind to. These both mention that feeling, honoring what you feel, and trusting in what you feel. It seems to me immediately that these are maybe supporting cards to this one. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read through the full descriptions of all of these. Let me just skim here. I believe 44 is the last card in the deck. Is that correct? Is that correct? Yes, it is. So Winter Woodlands, the first one I pulled out, that was calling to me as I shuffled. The keywords are self-compassion, healing takes time, and honor what you feel. Talking about heart healing. Don't feel pressure to heal in any particular way. Your heart will thaw and spring will find you again. and weather divination. Keywords are focus, paying attention, interpreting signs, and trusting what you feel. It's rarely ever clear cut, so it's up to you to learn how to piece things together in the most accurate way. It's just what I was describing. Let me look at North Star, since that was one that fell out very abruptly and very decisively. I think maybe that is probably going to end up being the conduit card. North Star. Having purpose, focus, knowing yourself, and reorientation. Polaris, more commonly known as the North Star, is unlike any other star in the night sky. While most stars appear to change their position as the Earth spins in the northern hemisphere, the North Star will always guide you north and give you a way to orient your direction when you are feeling lost. The southern hemisphere counterpart to the North Star is considered Polaris Australis. It is also known as Sigma Octantis and faces south. This card encourages you to find your own North Star, the personal values, beliefs, or purpose that you can come back to when you've lost your way. That might be a cause you feel deeply moved by, the love of your family, a goal you wish to achieve, or a mantra you've chosen to live your life by. However, all of the ways to stay centered and intentional. Knowing yourself is perhaps the most important reason of all. You may need to detach from your situation or the people around you to reconnect with the center of your sky, yourself. Distractions have caused you to blow off course, but there's still plenty of time to make necessary adjustments. Additionally, consider reducing your workload by focusing on one or very few tasks or items at a time. Attempting to go in too many directions will cause further confusion and doubt about the way forward. If you're unsure of which option to choose, ask yourself which path best fits your ideal outcome. I mentioned that sometimes I like to put them back in and reshuffle, but I feel strongly that the way this one fell out was so decisive, and the way that it's sort of supported by these two cards about honoring what you feel and trusting yourself feed into this very nicely. And I feel strongly that this is the conduit card, so I'm just going to write it down. Conduit. North Star. I thought it might end up being the root, but I think I'm just going to keep it as the conduit card. Angelica was at the bottom. I always like to note the root. I refer to the bottom card as the root usually, personally. I did do a reading with this the other day when I was feeling very anxious, and it was an incredible reading, so I already feel very drawn to this deck. I don't know. Up next is the mother card though, so I'm going to focus on that idea of Mother Deciduous and like ground to the earth and feel a connection to nature. Ask Mother Deciduous, ask Spirit, whatever you want to call it. Ask that to speak through the cards to me right now. Something felt right there, I don't know. Bottom is Winter Woodlands again. Weather divination. I will sometimes pick the top few cards. I think I might do that. Wrong book. 42. I didn't read it quite all the way through before. Focus, paying attention, interpreting signs, and trusting what you feel. There's something about not intention, what's the word? Intuition. Something about intuition here. Divination rarely, if ever, delivers clear-cut signs, so it's up to you to learn how to piece things together to tell the most accurate story. It is something to be learned over time, but it's also an innate gift you must possess. So you have the confidence to know what's right or wrong. This card suggests the need to watch a situation closely, knowing others are watching you just as intently. You are likely experiencing many moving parts that require a great deal of focus and attention. Many things fall through the cracks in the coming weeks. Many things may fall through the cracks in the coming weeks if you aren't careful. You may need to give a little extra effort for a time until things settle down. But just as with divination, you need some room to release perfectionism. Do the best you can while understanding that mistakes are unavoidable. Others will respect your efforts as long as you are honest, willing to acknowledge that you may not have all the answers. If you're worried about how your situation will play out, this usually means there isn't a clear answer just yet. Trust that sometimes things feel off than it probably is. Pulling this, I immediately was like, that's not Mother Deciduous. I'm going to pull the top 3, actually, and see what they are. Candle dressing. Sharp as nails, engraving my will. Intentions spoken. Declare what will be. It's funny, I accidentally said intentions of intuition just a second ago. This one is calming. I am here, present, ready to answer the call. Hear my bleeding roar coming back home to me. That one I'm going to read. Back home to the self, answering the call and taking the action. It's a confirmation you are on the right path. What you've asked about is right for where you are at this time in your life, and you can expect it to work out. There we go. In some readings, it indicates a need to spend more time at home with family. It feels very connected to the idea of Mother Deciduous for me. I think this feels right. Here's what the cusp card is. Oh, the previous one, I shuffled this so much. This does innately feel right. Sometimes it's not the first card you pull, necessarily, depending on what it says. And the description for weather divination information talking about. If it feels off, it is. Sometimes I'm like, it's the third one down, so this one makes perfect sense, I think. I'm gonna write down cloning for the mother card. The mirror card. This is typically the most interesting card of any of these readings that I do. Sort of seeing how the deck sees me. Again, usually for the 78 card ones, it is almost always the High Priestess. I don't know how or why. But yeah, that's when it's for Oracle decks. So far at least, it's been very interesting to see the self card that comes up. I get a vibe right now that I'm not going to pull more cards. I just may end up doing like the root card of it, meaning the bottom card, depending on the vibes. Just as I was shuffling, I was like, I don't feel like I'm gonna pull deeper at the top. I feel like it might be whatever's at the bottom. I don't know. But there's nothing to whatever the stop card is, I think. Again, just sometimes you just gotta let yourself really like give in to the woo-woo of it, give in to the like, I can feel the energy of this card. Cinnamon rolls warm my heart, all deserving comfort, radiates, readies my heart. Cinnamon rolls. Love, self-love, comfort, being content, and peace. The Cinnamon Rolls card is a positive omen, and especially for love readings, as it can mean a significant commitment, such as a declaration of love or proposal, is very near. This is a sweet card that appears in your reading when all seems right in your emotional world. Feeling is one of being at peace and taking joy in realizing all or most of your emotional desires have been manifested for you. Gratitude, commitment to positive outlook, good fortune, abundance, blessings, community, celebrating life with others, generosity, cinnamon coffee simmer pot. I like that they have little like spells and actions, things you can do practically in these books. I don't know. I'm tempted to just trust that this is it, but I mentioned the root card for this, and I feel called to do it. Oh my god, these nails. There we go. Consecrate tools. I pulled this one during a reading before. I will claim what is mine, what I see beyond the hidden, gifted spirit. By tongue my words spill with purpose. Oh, what's fascinating is it's 14 and 16, so I'm going to obviously have to look at what 15 is. When I just opened this book up, I opened it up to devotional, which when I first looked at the deck was the first card I saw. So that's very cool. Coming of spring is 15, which is preparing for rebirth. reaching for the light in a search of help. Consecrate tools is establishment, displaying spirit, and claiming ownership. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Pulling this card means you have not claimed ownership of the situation you're asking about. Witches consecrate tools to clear them of any former energy and dedicate them to a higher purpose. Make a conscious decision to commit to something completely. Interesting. This one comes with sort of the advice or even request to be more decisive. And I've been quite indecisive in this reading so far. So maybe I should. I think I'm gonna take this as like a bounce back to just the top card from this pulling and stick with this. I was thinking for a moment it might be both of them in conjunction, but I think it's not. I think it's just cinnamon rolls. Your card is cinnamon rolls. And finally, the ultimate root. Now, there's a chance I'm not going to write anything down in this video. Oftentimes, the ultimate root card for a deck is one that shows up across multiple readings and just like keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. With the Samhain one, it seemed like every other reading I was doing, the wolf card would come into play. Things like that with the mushroom deck. The Knight of Wands was the first card I pulled, and then it kept coming up. Mostly in readings I do for myself rather than the couple that I've filmed. So if it doesn't feel innately right, then I'm not going to write anything down for here. I know that's unsatisfying, but sticking way out. Sometimes I like to just feel it in my hands for a moment before flipping it over. I don't know. I'm not sure this is the one. Okay, that's because I pulled this one. I haven't done many readings with this, but I pulled this one twice. And then it was the root card there. That's yeah. I was specifically just saying that I think I might not write something down, and then I get the card that I've already pulled, that I mentioned that I already pulled, and that just scolded me for not being decisive enough. For the sake of my own curiosity, I'm going to check the top and bottom card that is left here. Arts and crafts. Nothing exists without the essence of spirit. May it be whispers or chants. Your energy is what brings life to all that you create. I like that, but it doesn't. Oh, an amethyst, the last card that I'm looking at, is the first card of the deck. Yeah. That's why Black Bear was the second to bottom card previously as well. Fascinating. Anyway. Amethyst, go where your spirit dwells, where your sight is clear and your breath is liberated. Go where your spirit dwells, where your sight is clear and your breath is liberated. But Consecrate Tools feels like it's mocking me in a way that feels like it has to be the root card. That's what I was saying, is it's often the card that comes up across multiple readings. This card is, with all the love of a close friend, flipping me the bird right now, and I can feel it, and I like it. And open back up to it again. Yeah. Displaying spirit and gaining ownership. Yeah. If you remain on the fence about your situation, you could send out the energy of doubt and possibly confusion, and we'll get more of that in return. Or if you're leaving room for someone else to come in and take what is meant to be yours, by embracing what is before you, you are allowing an energetic pathway to establish its place in your life. That is very good advice for me specifically. I'll take a quick peek at Amethyst. Intuition, spiritual connection, and stress relief. Amethyst is considered to be a stone of spiritual connection and helpful in seeking sobriety, likely a balance between spiritual and practical means. Connecting with cosmic intelligence has no useful power if you are unwilling or unmotivated to act upon this gift of wisdom. Trust that your intuition is correct and will guide you to the right outcome. While it may not be easy, there is a way out of your circumstances, because deep down you know what to do, even if you don't want to do it. I like that these are both kind of tough love cards. I was not expecting that to be the case. It's usually quite the opposite for root cards. You get the star and stargazing. This is slightly closer to that Knight of Wands from my mushroom deck. As far as that, but that one's more like, go get him, Tiger, and this one's like, Tiger, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I like that. I think, yeah, no, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna write them both down as the root card. I'm saying we have a double root, I'm going with it. Yeah. Consecrate Tools and Amethyst. And I know how to spell amethyst. I'm just double checking. Anyway. Alright. This is my deck connectivity reading. The conduit is the North Star. The mother is Kunning. The mirror is cinnamon rolls. And the root is Consecrate Tools and Amethyst. What this means for me is that my personal readings will be guided by these concepts. So, with the North Star means that the deck is telling me to trust it as a path forward and as a grounding presence. It is the North Star in the sky. I can trust it to help me navigate. The mother is cooling. very positive card. Mother Deciduous is speaking through this deck, through positivity. I need to look up cloning again. I don't remember enough. There was coming back home to the self and answering the call. Confirmation you are on the right path. There is some reassurance through like the spirit world, through the nature, through that idea of the life force in the mind. However you want to interpret that. That is the cloning, that is a reassurance of that, basically the mother card is your place in the universe, in the web of the universe, that energy. So cloning is very positive here, and it's very healing. Similar to North Star, it's almost grounding in a way, I'd say. The mirror cinnamon rolls is honestly just a very high compliment. It's very sweet, especially given the tough love of the roots. Getting cinnamon rolls as being something so sweet and being about love. That's very, very nice. I think that's the most flattering mirror card I've ever gotten. And then the most bullying, lovingly, but still bullying root cards I've ever gotten with Consecrate Tools and Amethyst. So I can interpret those through the deck. And with cinnamon rolls, I didn't say, but I can interpret this deck as thinking highly of me and almost motheringly towards me with the cinnamon rolls. But this deck is calling me sweetheart and sugar like a southern waitress, you know what I mean? And then with Consecrate Tools and Amethyst, the ultimate root card is the most important one, really, for this reading. And with these two, again, it's a tough love. It's be decisive. What was that from? Amethyst again. I need to get a better sense of it. Sort of similar in a way. Intuition, what was it? Connecting, yeah. So it's putting together the practical with the spiritual. So moving my readings from, this kind of calls back to what I opened with talking about with using the way that I use the woo-woo, the vibe, the mysticism, the occult of tarot readings and things, the way that I use that as a tool to later look on more practically. That's really being doubled down on through this card here. I can remember that as being the thesis of all of my future personal readings with this deck. So, it's a bit messy, it's a bit rambly, it's just very following my intuition, but that is how I get to know a new deck and break in a new deck. And I don't know that this was particularly educational at all, but I hope it was at least interesting to anyone who has their own tarot practice or an interest in starting one. You do not need to do any of the things I'm doing here. I'm just sharing how I go about it. That's all. From here, you can feel free to drift off to dreams or to remain exactly as you are, whatever you'd like. And of course, you can stay here as long as you like, as always. Thank you for being here. I really